Hey, it's Jared. In this video, I'm going to go through the complete process of building a custom WordPress website using Claude Code. We're actually going to build a full membership platform, and I'm setting this up as a community. I originally was planning on developing an online community for building out Claude Code projects, and I've kind of pivoted a little bit and decided that I just want to put this entire build video out. Now, it is a long video. It walks through the entire process from first chat to a fully deployed website. And so you'll probably want to take a look at the timestamps of this video because it's quite long. Jump around and come back to different parts that make sense as you need to. And there's also some resource links down in the description below for you to check out as well. But this is the complete build. So if you've ever wondered, can I build a membership website using Claude Code and WordPress? Yes, you can. And in this video, we're going to do it together. Let's jump into it. So we're going to start out in Claude. This is my Claude account here. So it has all of my context in previous conversations. And I have talked with Claude a little bit about what I'm wanting to build here. And so I'm going to do a lot of voice to text. It's just easier for me to do that than it is to type things out. And right now I use Whisperflow for that. And so I'm going to double tap on my function key and I'm going to just dictate into Claude what it is that I'm wanting to do. So I'm building an online community, and I've talked about this before in another chat. This is for those that have followed me through social media, primarily YouTube, and those that were interested in a cohort or an online course that walks through the entire process of coming up with an idea for a Claude Code project, primarily with the productivity dashboard or the personal operations dashboard that I built, how to have a conversation and iterate on the ideas of what features need to be in that, and then all the way to actually building that out and deploying it and maintaining it over time. And so this is a community for that. And I'm going to build this website in WordPress. We're going to use FluentCommunity, which is a plugin for WordPress that I have experience with and I think would be great for this. And then I'm going to handle communication like email and stuff like that through FluentCRM, which allows me to send out emails to the group and all of that good stuff. We're going to work on a design, and we'll use Claude Design for that. And we'll work on the design, and then we'll bring the design back here into this chat and iterate on that. And then when I feel like we have come to something that's going to work, then we will work on the design that will go into the WordPress website. What I want to build is a WordPress theme that is custom to what we're doing here. I'm going to use advanced custom fields that this theme will work with. And I've done that with other websites, and you've helped me with other websites that are WordPress based. We build a custom theme, and then the pages are updated using advanced custom fields. So that's the process that we'll go through there. I'm also recording this entire process of building out this website in this online community so that I could share it with others. It's important that we explain throughout the process what we're doing and make sure that I'm not jumping over things that I may understand too well because of my experience. I want to make sure that we are working through these things and that we're able to break this up into sections so that I can share this entire process with others. All right, so we've got my text. I'm going to go ahead and we've got it set on Fable 5 high right now. Fable is included right now. They keep kind of pushing it back until July 19th. So for a few more days. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it on Fable. But I don't know, their pricing for Fable may end up being a little bit interesting. And so at some point we might end up dropping down to Opus 4.8. But for right now, we're going to be using Fable 5 in the high setting. And so I'm submitting this now to Claude. I gave Claude the context of what it is that we're looking to build. And there is some some pre-existing knowledge and understanding that I already have. As an online marketing professional, I'm very familiar with WordPress as a platform for websites. I'm very familiar with plugins that operate within WordPress. I have photography online courses that are using WordPress and a custom theme. And then I'm also using a plugin called FluentCommunity to share those courses and all of those things. And so these are tools that I'm already familiar with, and the information about these is readily available on the internet. If you go and search for WordPress, if you go and search for FluentCommunity, FluentCRM, and I'll mention other WordPress plugins as we get through this. Okay, so here is what Claude is saying. It says, good, this picks up right where the course planning left off. Like I said, I had already had a conversation with Claude, just kind of discussing like, what would this look like? Like if I was going to build out a community or an online course or something like that, what would this actually look like as far as structure and what would be valuable? And I added some comments and conversations, short conversations that I'd had with people who I'd met through these YouTube videos that I've been doing and through my Substack, and had some chat conversations. And we came to the general consensus that we're going to build.jaredhill.com. And so this is essentially going to be kind of like an online community around building tools that we actually want to implement into our lives, not the shiny object syndrome that a lot of YouTubers and other AI influencers and code influencers get all excited about, but actually building something and implementing it, which there's challenges to that. I mean, this community will help people in the technical side of things because there are non-technical people who want to build something and it still requires a level of technical understanding. And so that's essentially what this is going to be. So it says here, before design, one scoping distinction worth locking, and it's mentioning some things from previous conversations, but it said beginners, FluentCommunity renders its own portal UI. Yes, I understand that. So it's independent of my theme. That's fine. Custom ACF theme governs the public facing site. Great. And let's see, here's a section structure that works for this. And so, this could be perhaps how we break up this course, I guess, or this walkthrough. Each section's also a natural boundary for the am I skipping steps check at the top of each recording. And so this is great. This is going to help me structure myself through this process. It's interesting because usually when I build a course, it's well structured. Everything has its modules and its sections. And I'm doing this kind of, it's not live, but I mean, I am kind of live doing this and iterating and figuring this out along the way. So foundation, coming up with the pages and all of that stuff. So 2 things to settle before Claude Design: the page inventory for phase 1 and whether the design should extend to existing Jared Hill brand or establish a distinct brand identity. Which way are you leading? Okay, so now we have a couple of questions that we need to answer. So I'm going to go ahead and initiate Whisperflow again just to start recording my voice, and I'm going to respond to what Claude is asking. Okay, all of that looks good. To answer your questions on page inventory, I definitely want to have a homepage design. I do recognize that FluentCommunity has its own design, and that's fine. But as far as the front-facing, what people see publicly will be a homepage. I don't want to have an elaborate about page because they could go to jaredhill.com and find out more about me, but there does need to be a little about page with the backstory of why this exists. And that backstory would include a little bit of the story of me building this personal operations dashboard for myself, sharing that, connecting with people online through what I believe is authenticity, sharing my process and what I built for myself and what I've learned along the way, as opposed to just continually churning out shiny new projects for views. And so just a general little about page there that doesn't go super in depth about me, but shares a little bit about why this community exists. And then there obviously needs to be a page that shares what this is about, what the community is about, what it includes, the benefits of joining and taking part in this together. I will be doing cohorts. And so this isn't something I think at the beginning that people will be able to join at any time. The cohort will open, and then there will be a period of time where people can sign up. Then we will do that process together, whether it's a 30-day cohort or something else. And then that will end. And then maybe I will open up another one. So this isn't necessarily a sales page. It's more of a what the community is and the cohort is going to be. And I'll have to flesh that out a little bit here as we continue to work through this. And then there needs to be, I'd say, probably a contact page that just has a simple form for people to contact and ask questions. And of course, I want people to be able to sign up to the Substack, because that's my newsletter. If a cohort isn't opened and there's no question that they have, they can sign up through Substack just to follow along and whatnot there. So those would be the pages and a little bit about the sales, about stuff there as far as that goes. And then the design is a challenging question to answer, because right now my own website, my personal website, jaredhill.com, is relatively black and white and simple. And I'll attach some screenshots to that so that you can see it. And I think we'll kind of mimic that simplicity there. I don't want this to be over the top as far as design goes. I want it to be simple and kind of follow that branding, but I don't really have solid branding for myself yet. So I don't want to get too locked into something, and I want to be able to update this later on should I choose to. All right, so it's publishing or putting the text that I spoke out into the chat, and we've submitted it. And you'll notice that I'm kind of conversational with how I give my directions to Claude. It's not, I try to talk to it like it's a person, not because it is or anything like that, but because I want all of those little intricacies of what I'm saying as if I was speaking to a real person. If I was sitting in front of a graphic designer or a web designer, or a handful of people who are going to deploy all these things for me, I would want them to be able to pick up on maybe some areas in which I'm not totally confident or totally sure of exactly what it is that I want. And Claude can pick up on some of those things too, especially based on what we type. And if we do type everything out, I feel like we're more matter of fact. And Claude is going to assume that we know exactly what it is that we want. It's okay to figure this out with Claude and not necessarily know what we want. If we come across too confident and we really aren't, then Claude's going to assume that we know exactly what we want, and it will just build exactly what we want. And that's where we get ourselves into trouble, is allowing it to build what it thinks that we want when maybe there's some unsureties there. We're not 100% confident in what we want. So it's okay to have that as part of the conversation when you are iterating and coming up with ideas and working within Claude. So it says quick flag screenshot didn't come through. Yep, my bad. I did not include a screenshot because I'm too busy here thinking and talking. So I'm going to capture a full page screenshot here, and we'll go ahead and do that and save that to my downloads folder like so. And then we'll go back to Claude, and I'm going to attach that screenshot that I just took, and we'll see what else it says. Okay, so it's confirming my website page inventory. It says structural thing on your cohort model creates the most community sites don't have, and it's worth designing from day one. So I'm trying to go through this kind of quickly and not take up a ton of time here. On design direction, your instinct not to lock it in solves the right architecture. Good. Next step, giving us the screenshot, and want me to draft that brief now. Here's the screenshot of the home page of my personal website. And yes, let's draft the brief now that I can take over to Claude Design. All right, so we'll go ahead and submit that. And it'll take a second here for it to think things through and process that draft. It's probably just going to go right into that. So I'll go ahead and just cut to when that's done. All right, the brief is done. That took maybe less than 2 minutes. And so let's just look at it really quick. I'm not going to spend a ton of time looking through and reading everything in the brief because we've already kind of went over this in the chat, and I think it has a pretty good understanding of what we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and download this as MD and save that to my downloads folder. Then I'll click on Claude Design, and we're going to go ahead and create a new design system. The reason that I want to create a new design system is because I don't have a brand essentially. And I mentioned that already, that I don't really have a brand around this, but this website, it's going to be more than just this website. I want to iterate on this brand. And of course, I'm going to share some things to social media and post some things. And I want to have consistency across the board. So I'm going to click create here. And I have a box here for company name and blurb. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this Jared Hill. And I'm going to add a little bit of context to this. So I'll just speak this right in. This is the design system for my personal brand. I am an entrepreneur who runs a digital marketing agency. I have some online courses. I'm a photographer and a YouTuber. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and add the screenshot of the website that I have right now. And then I'm going to add some other notes, and I'll just speak those in as well. I don't really have a ton of direction on how I want my personal brand to look. I do like a clean aesthetic that is more black and white for my own personal brand. I've attached a screenshot of my existing website, not because I love that look, but so that you have an idea of what I have had in the past. But I'm very open to new ideas. Ultimately, I want a professional looking brand that is not distracting, that I can use across my websites and social media. All right, we've got that added in. And with that context, which is not giving it a lot, I can go ahead and hit continue to generation. And then it says it's going to take about 5 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and generate that. Then I'll click on Claude Design, and we're going to go ahead and create a new design system. The reason that I want to create a new design system is because I don't have a brand essentially. And I mentioned that already, that I don't really have a brand around this, but this website, it's going to be more than just this website. I want to iterate on this brand. And of course, I'm going to share some things to social media and post some things. And I want to have consistency across the board. So I'm going to click create here. And I have a box here for company name and blurb. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this Jared Hill. And I'm going to add a little bit of context to this. So I'll just speak this right in. This is the design system for my personal brand. I am an entrepreneur who runs a digital marketing agency. I have some online courses. I'm a photographer and a YouTuber. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and add the screenshot of the website that I have right now. And then I'm going to add some other notes, and I'll just speak those in as well. I don't really have a ton of direction on how I want my personal brand to look. I do like a clean aesthetic that is more black and white for my own personal brand. I've attached a screenshot of my existing website, not because I love that look, but so that you have an idea of what I have had in the past. But I'm very open to new ideas. Ultimately, I want a professional looking brand that is not distracting, that I can use across my websites and social media. All right, we've got that added in. And with that context, which is not giving it a lot, I can go ahead and hit continue to generation. And then it says it's going to take about 5 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and generate that. Okay, so building out the design system took probably closer to 10 minutes, but we have a lot of great information in here. And I was just going to say, like, visual foundations. It goes through the entire design system stack, and I could spend time reading through all of this. But as I scroll down, it's built me a redesigned personal site, which is pretty close to what already exists. But then it also gave me a word mark, not necessarily a logo, but what my name as far as text on white and dark looks like. It built out an icon pack. Looks like the YouTube one's missing, but an icon pack that I can use. Here's the kind of black and white transition here, natural ramp, maybe some status colors to add a little bit of color throughout the site, and lots of assets here that I could use to build out this website that we're going to be creating here. So lots of good information. And then I also have, I believe there is a more full screen version of the website that we could look at. If I scroll up a little bit here, here is more of the full screen of what the website looks like. And it's pretty consistent to what my existing website looks like, but all of these are assets that it has now designed that I have readily available that I can use. So now we have a couple of things. We have a design system to work off of, and then we also have that document that we generated here, our design brief for the specific website that we're building out. And now we have FluentCommunity installed. We don't have it really configured yet, as we don't have most of these other tools configured yet, but it's installed. Let's go back over to Claude Code, and you can see here it needs some additional permissions. We'll go ahead and click accept. It's good to pay attention to what Claude Code is doing, because often it does need access to deploy things locally and work, because it is actually building and writing code locally on our computer in those folders. Because if we go to that build folder, you can see there's more in here than what originally was in this folder. We now not just have the brief that we started out with, we also have all of this stuff here, which is our plugin that we're working on. And it also has a index.html preview, which is essentially a web page. We can open this up and see exactly what this is. Okay, it brought in essentially a build of what this is going to look like. And we already have this, even though Claude Code isn't done building what we've asked for. Claude is still working on building out the actual WordPress plugin that's going to house all of this design and bring in the different pages and things that we've asked it to create into WordPress itself. So it's continuing to work on that while we have the ability here to see, essentially see this preview of what things are going to be in our WordPress website, which is amazing. And all of this is going to be editable from the back end of WordPress without having to go into Claude and have it churn out new code and replace code and do all of these things that could be a little bit tricky to manage over time and time consuming. We have build/Jared Hill, which is awesome, about the cohort, contact, join the cohort button. We have essentially a hero section here about what we are doing, and it's given us all of this content based on the earlier conversations that we had, which is great. Now, this open enrollment date is something that it just kind of came up with. Obviously, I didn't give it any dates yet, but this is all going to be editable on the back end of the website. As we scroll down, you can see what is this? A course, a community, and a cohort. And it breaks that up into 3 sections, a little bit of the backstory, the ability to read the whole story once that's an actual page, how the cohort's going to work, what's included, a quote that I have on my other website, and also the ability to subscribe on Substack, something that I asked for. And then down here, it's showing us the cohort page. And so this is the actual cohort page itself. Who's this for? Questions like some FAQs, join it. Here's the footer. And so this is great. This is all that I asked it to do. And then here's the toggle for closed. So when I close it, you could see it's automatically going to allow people to just follow along on Substack or join the waitlist, which is great. We also have those color accents over here. I asked for the ability to be able to choose from these color accents. And so if I click on these, it updates that, and it's giving me the ability to try each of these colors and see which one fits the best for me. This is amazing. This is exactly why I love building with all of these Claude tools. We're going to jump over to xCloud, which is a web host that has a variety of different options as far as what you can deploy to the internet, but we're going to actually install a new WordPress website. So I'm going to click here to install a new WordPress website. This is going to create a host account, and it's also going to install WordPress so that we have all of that ready to go and implement our website into. So I'm going to choose default here. Then we'll scroll down and we're going to call this build.jaredhill.com. We're just going to go live because I'm just going to build directly on this domain name. We're going to type in build.jaredhill.com. And I'm going to hit add DNS and SSL certificate on Cloudflare. And this works for me because I already have my domain name running through Cloudflare and Cloudflare connected to xCloud. So this is automatically going to create the connection between this new website that we're building and my website domain name build.jaredhill.com. If you don't have this set up, then it's a little bit more manual of a process, but xCloud walks you through how to connect your domain name to your new website really easily. So it's not a challenging process. We're going to go ahead and leave most of these other items enabled. And then blueprints, I'm going to turn off because I want a plain version of WordPress without any added options installed. I'll then click next. All right, so now we're back in xCloud and we actually have our hosting dashboard. And so I can go to build.jaredhill.com and we should have just a blank WordPress installation, which is fantastic. Now I want to get logged into that. So I'm going to use the magic login button over here and click that, and it's going to log me into the back end of WordPress. And it's a nice way of logging in, not having to remember your username or your password. And so anytime I could just go into my xCloud dashboard, click that button, and it's going to log me into WordPress. And so if we look at WordPress on the back end here, there isn't much there. Under plugins, there isn't much there either. We just have the caching plugin. We have the spam protection plugin, which I'll activate later. And then Hello Dolly, which is just, it doesn't do anything. It's just a plugin that's in there that has been there since the existence of WordPress. So this is all we have. We don't have anything as far as pages. We just have a sample privacy policy and a sample page. I'll go ahead and delete the sample page. I'm also going to delete the sample post or like blog post because I don't need that implemented here. We'll go back over to Claude Code. You can see it's asking for some permissions. I'm just going to click always allow as we work on this. And it's going to continue to build this up. It says it's setting up its environment for building out this PHP code because WordPress themes are PHP based, and it also is going to need to be able to write that code. And so it's setting up what it's going to need so that it can execute and build out everything that we are asking it to build. So let's continue to configure things in WordPress here. So I need to go down to settings, and under the general tab here, we don't have our site named. So I'm going to call this Build with Jared. That's going to be essentially the name of the site. I don't have a site icon yet. We'll go ahead and choose the correct time zone. So I'm going to look for Denver because that's essentially the time zone signifier that we'll use so that everything on this website is connected to the right time zone for me. And then, of course, if people are in other time zones, it will automatically adjust for them appropriately. And we'll just hit save. So we now have that saved. So while we wait for Claude Code to continue building things out here, we can jump back over to WordPress and we could start to install some of the plugins that we're going to need in order to make this work. So I'm going to click on Install Plugins, and FluentCommunity. FluentCRM is an email marketing automation tool that works within WordPress. And the reason that I would want this is so that I can send email to people who are in the cohort as a group and not just send one-off emails through my email client. So I'll need to download it and then click Add Plugin, Upload Plugin, and then we'll click Install Now to install the file. We'll click Activate Plugin. And then I also need to install the free version of it from WordPress itself. So I'll type in FluentCRM. and click install now. Now, the reason that I'm installing two of these plugins, one is the free version, one is the pro version. And since I have both, I'll install both because that's what's going to unlock additional functionality for me. Now I'll go through the Fluent CRM setup process. It says business name. I'm just going to put Jared Hill in here. I don't have a logo yet, and I do need to put an address. Because when you send out email through a tool like this in the United States anyways, you need to have your mailing address attached. And so I'll just go ahead and put that in there. I'm going to set up some lists. I'm going to add one for members, and then I'm going to add one for students as well. I might change those later. The difference between lists and then on the next page here is tags is how you organize your contacts. And so what are the different groups that people are going to be in? You can tag for that. And so under students, there might be cohort 1, cohort 2, cohort 3, or students that are involved in different courses. And so I might just add cohort 1-1, and we'll just leave it at that and click next. Now, for building a site where people are going to pay to sign up for something, there needs to be a method in order for them to do that, kind of like a shopping cart. And FluentCRM, from the company that makes FluentCRM, they also have FluentCart. And so I'm just going to go ahead and allow it to install FluentCart. And then we're also going to need a plugin that allows us to build out communication forms. And so I'm going to allow it to install Fluent Forms as well. And then I'll click complete installation and then just say, yes, count me in. Go ahead and share non-sensitive diagnostic data so that they can better improve their plugin. So now we're all set. I can go to my dashboard here, and it's asking me, because I have FluentCRM Pro installed, that I need to add my license. And so I've added my license, and then FluentCRM needs to be updated. There's an update to it now that I've installed that. So we'll just go ahead and run that software update. So we'll just go ahead and click update now so that it installs that software update. Now you can see there are some other plugins that are installed, Fluent Forms, FluentCart, and I also have pro versions of those plugins, so I'll make sure to install those so that I get that additional functionality. Now let's take a look at Claude Code just to see where we're at. Looks like we're still working here. It's building things out, building page field groups, and continuing to work, so everything looks good here. So next we need to configure FluentCart. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my country. We'll just call this build with Jared, and I don't have a logo, so we'll leave that alone. We'll click continue. Collect taxes, don't need to do that. And it will generate the pages that it needs for checkout, for add to cart, for the receipt, for the shop itself, and the customer profile. So I'm just going to go ahead and click generate all pages, and it went ahead and created those automatically for me. Then I'll hit continue and set up your projects. I'm just going to have start from scratch. Don't want to have like predetermined products in there. I just want to start from 0, and we'll click save, and boom, we're ready to go. So next we're going to look at installing Fluent Community. This is the tool that is going to allow us to put a course in our website and then also have discussion forums or discussion rooms as well on specific topics. It's a fantastic plugin. It's kind of like a cross between Discord and Circle, which are different platforms for online community organization. And so we're going to go into plugins again on our WordPress site, hit add plugin, upload plugin, and then we'll install Fluent Community, which I have downloaded, and we'll click install now. This, of course, is the pro version of the plugin, and so it as well will need a free version of the plugin. You can see we've got Fluent Community Pro here, and then we'll go to add plugin, and we'll type in Fluent Community. And we'll install the free version of Fluent Community. Always make sure that you are installing the correct plugin, because sometimes it does bring up a lot of alternatives. So just make sure that you don't go too fast and that you are in fact installing the correct versions of these plugins. Now that we have the plugin installed, it's going to allow us to name our community. So I'm just going to call this Build with Jared, and under build.jaredhill.com/portal. And you could change this to something else. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as portal. And since I don't have an actual logo yet, we'll leave that blank. We'll click continue to next. says pick a template, basic, course, product, or blank. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as blank for now. Who can access your portal? Definitely not everyone public. So I'm going to choose only logged in users, and we'll go ahead and leave the permissions set to that. And then we'll click save and finish. You can see I have a notification here that Fluent SMTP needs to be configured for it to work. That's going to show up because our website needs the ability to send email, and so it needs to be connected to an email service in order for that to happen. So we'll go ahead and click on Configure Fluent SMTP, and we have all of these different options on how to connect and authenticate email so that when our website sends an email to somebody, it's a legitimate email. It doesn't go to the spam box, and it doesn't end up hurting our domain authority for sending out email, because jaredhill.com is my domain name, and I want to make sure that everything is configured correctly so that when my website is sending out emails for when people signed up, like welcome emails, what to expect, when the cohort starts, any sort of automated emails that I'm going to create, the website is going to send those on my behalf. And I want to make sure that all of these are sending correctly and that people get them. Now, I personally use SendGrid as the email tool that connects and authenticates my email. And so I'm going to put in an email address here that the website is going to send from. And so it's just going to be hi@jaredhill.com. And then it'll be from Build with Jared. Or I'll just put Jared Hill. That's probably good enough. We'll put Build with Jared next to it, just so it when somebody receives this, they know what it's coming from. And then we need a SendGrid API. So we're going to go to SendGrid. I already have an account with SendGrid, but you would need to create an account with SendGrid or whatever tool that you wanted to use. I know for me, I already use SendGrid. I've been using it for a long time. And so it's very easy for me just to deploy additional websites through SendGrid, but you can use any tool that Fluent SMTP works with. Just choose the one that makes the most sense for you. Perhaps you already have access to one, or you can also shop around because this is a service that does have a small cost associated with it. And so you want to make sure you're using something that makes sense for what you're building. So what you're going to need is an API from the sending authority that you're going to be using. And since I'm using SendGrid, I will go down into settings. I'll choose API keys. I'm going to click Create API. I'm going to call this Build with Jared. Actually, I like having the domain in there, build.jaredhill.com. I'm going to click on Custom Access, scroll down to Mail Send, and I'm just going to choose Mail Send. That's the only permissions that this is going to need. And then we're going to come back to our website and we're going to paste that API key in here. Now, most sites, including SendGrid, only give you that API key once. So it's important that you save that API key somewhere, because if you need it again, you aren't going to be able to go back to SendGrid or whichever other account and get that API key. You might need to generate it again, which is typically not a problem. You saw how easy it is to generate one. But for me, I just like to save those somewhere safe. I use 1Password. And so in my 1Password, I will have the login for my website, username and password. I'll have the SendGrid API. I'll have the API key for SendGrid, and anything else that's important to know about that specific website saved in 1Password so that I can access it should I need it in the future. We'll hit Save Our Connection Settings, and now we have SendGrid enabled, and we can now go and actually do an email test. I can select the From email and hit 2, and we'll just hit Send Test Email. It says that it successfully created that email. And if we come over to my email client, you can see, yes, here we have that successful email that I did receive. You can see it came from Jared Hill -Build with Jared, and hi@jaredhill.com is the email address that it sent it from. Now, there are some additional things that you're going to need to do to make sure that those emails are deliverable and that they don't come through as spam. In SendGrid specifically, we would go under Sender Authentication, and we would authenticate my domain name. I'd put in jaredhill.com, and then I'd need to go over to Cloudflare or my domain register, wherever my DNS is configured, and I'd need to add some items that SendGrid is going to give me there. This verifies the domain name by connecting the domain name to SendGrid, giving SendGrid authority to send email on behalf of that domain name. And it's very good about walking you through this process. It's not something that I need to do with you here. When you go and hit authenticate your domain name, you choose your DNS host, which I could choose Cloudflare, or maybe you're using GoDaddy or Namecheap or another one. And then I can click on next. I'll put in my domain name. So I'd put in jaredhill.com. And then I'd hit next, and it would walk me through the process of authenticating that domain name. But that's not something that I need to do here because I've already done that. But after you authenticate your domain name, you then need to make sure that you have a single sender validated, and that gives SendGrid the permission to send from that specific email address. So for me, it's hi@jaredhill.com. That's one that I already have set up and configured. But you just come in here and put in your name or the name in which you want that to come from. The from email address, I'd put in hi.jaredhill.com. If I want that to reply to somewhere else because maybe it's not a real email address, I could put jared@jaredhill.com or whatever my actual email address is. And then I'd put in my company address and give it a nickname and hit create. And then SendGrid would know that if an email request is coming through for hi@jaredhill.com, that matches a verified sender that I've already created, and it has all the information that it needs, and it knows that it can send an email on behalf of hi@jaredhill.com. That way we don't end up with spoof emails or spam or any other crazy thing that might come through, because we've set up the process of verified email addresses and verified domain names throughout this SendGrid connection. And that assures that when our website does send an email on our behalf, that SendGrid knows that that's valid and verified, and that when that email actually does get sent out, the inboxes of the people receiving, whether it's Gmail or Yahoo or whatever email service provider they're using, it's verified and that email is going to land in the inbox. It's a bit of a complex process setting all of this up, but it walks you through everything as you do it and gives you the steps that you need to take. And now we'll come back to our WordPress website. Now we have Fluent Forms configured as far as its ability to send email. Fluent Forms has two kind of default forms as samples that come in here. One is a subscription form, which we're not going to need because I'm not going to be having people sign up for subscriptions to this website using a form. People are going to either be part of my Substack or they're going to jump over and become part of a cohort or part of this community. So we'll go ahead and delete this. And it wants me to verify, and we'll click on confirm delete. And then we have contact form demo as well, which I'm just going to click edit. We just want a simple contact form with name, email address, subject, and message. I want these fields to be required. So we're going to click on required, and you can see it adds that little asterisk here so that we can require these fields when somebody submits. And so first and last name required, email required. Don't necessarily need the subject. We'll just go ahead and delete this, and then we'll just leave your message. I'm going to click on Save Form to save that form. Now, under Settings and Integrations here, this is the confirmation message that people will see after they submit the form. I think that's fine for now. We're just going to go ahead and leave it. And what's neat about using Fluent Forms with FluentCRM is that if somebody fills out the form, I can allow them to sign up for notifications in FluentCRM if we're going to be using FluentCRM to build out our email list. You might not be using Substack like I am. That's where I've decided I want my email list to exist. But if you wanted people to be able to sign up for your newsletter or sign up for updates, Fluent Forms actually connects with FluentCRM. And so I can set up that connection here, and that's under Configure Integrations. I'd click on Configure Integrations. Under New Integration, I would choose FluentCRM integration, and then I can give that integration a name. I can choose which list that they're going to be added to. So maybe if somebody fills out this form, it automatically adds them to members. You probably would want a list for newsletter or a list for updates or something like that. Then I would map the fields. I want it to add their email address. I want it to add their first name from the form, and I want it to add their last name from the form as well. And then down here, what tag do we apply to it? Well, I only have cohort 1 as a tag that I added, so I don't have another tag. I'd have to go over into Fluent CRM and add some additional tags. So we'll just leave that blank. And then I can click force subscribe if contact is in not subscribed status. For example, if somebody at one point unsubscribed from updates to my website and they were in Fluent CRM already at an unsubscribed state as a contact, and they filled out this form and said that they want updates, then I would obviously want this form to be able to overwrite that and update it. And so if I leave that enabled, it will go ahead and do that. And then hitting save feed would save this connection between the form and Fluent CRM itself. Now, I know that I might be going through a little bit of this quickly. We're talking about things in Fluent CRM and we haven't even gone into Fluent CRM yet. Let's actually jump over to Fluent CRM next and take a look. And while this page loads, let's make sure that Claude Code still has what it needs. We'll go ahead and just click accept to allow it to keep going. It has not stopped to ask us any questions or anything like that yet. So we're fine. We don't have anything that we need to give Claude Code yet at this point. So here in Fluent CRM is a CRM. It's for managing your contacts. And there's also other features that it has that CRM stands for Customer Relationship Manager or Management. And so you can use this in a lot of different ways. But one of the main features that it has is the ability to send email marketing and email marketing automation. And we will automate the process of sending welcome emails and confirmation emails and stuff like that. I obviously want this to be as personal as possible because it's going to be a cohort. It is very personal compared to a website that just sells courses and automates everything. But if somebody signs up, I want them to get the information that they need right away and not have to wait for me to manually email them. And that's what Fluent CRM is going to do. When somebody comes to the website and they sign up for a cohort, it's going to take them through the checkout process. They're going to make a payment, and then they're automatically going to be added to an email list where they get information and instructions that help them understand what's to come next. And that's all part of a good customer or cohort experience and making sure that people are informed and that they get that information quickly so that they're not sitting around wondering. So I can now take this design system and I can either download this as a PDF or an HTML project, or I can actually just send this directly to Claude Code. So I'm going to go ahead and click send, and we're going to copy this entire prompt. So I'm going to click copy prompt, and then I'm going to go and bring up Claude Code. Now I've got a brand new Claude Code session here that I need to attach to a specific folder. So we're going to go to create a new folder just in my documents, and I'm going to call this Jared Hill Build, and create a new folder, hit open, hit Trust Workspace. Now I need to put that document that we downloaded earlier into that folder. So we're going to go to Documents, Jared Hill Build, and then that design brief, we're going to drop that into that folder. We'll go back to Claude Code. I'm going to attach that file to this chat, and then I'm going to paste that design brief in here. And it says implement the designs in this project. I think I'm just going to change that to use the designs from Claude Design to implement the attached design brief. Please ask any questions before starting. And we'll go ahead and hit submit. It says sign in to verify your device. We'll just make sure that we're signed in here. We'll hit get started. It's probably doing this because we're going from that web to Claude Code connection. So it's just re-verifying that I am who I am. So we'll go ahead and just get logged in, and then we'll hit send and start this project. So now what we're going to do within Claude Code here is develop that WordPress theme that we will then apply to a WordPress installation. We'll walk through that as well. And now xCloud is going through the process of setting up the WordPress installation and that host account. Let's go back and check and see what Claude Code is working on. You can see it is alive and churning through everything. It hasn't asked me any questions yet. It has been going through the process, and it's been presenting with a little bit of information here. It has access. It's gotten everything. Okay, now it has some questions for me. It says, what should I actually build? All options reuse the design systems, tokens, and component styling. Static HTML, CMS recommended. Nope, don't want that. WordPress theme scaffold. That's what we actually want. But actually, like, I want to have a little bit more to say there. So let's actually go back and under other, I'm going to give it a little bit more context. I want to build a dedicated WordPress theme that utilizes advanced custom fields for the updating of pages. I don't want to use WordPress's default built-in page builder, site builder, or anything like that. I want all of the sections and content to be managed in advanced custom fields. And this WordPress theme that we're going to be developing should handle and contain everything that the website needs to have the design according to the assets that I've provided you. All right, now we'll hit next. And then it says the brief wants one restrained accent for cohort open state, swappable via token. Which direction should be active? Default in the mockups. Signal red, Unity utility blue, warm, or you'll propose later. Honestly, some things like this I don't want hard coded into the theme, so it's easier under other for me to add some context. I want there to be a settings page where I can choose these colors and have these predefined options there. So if these are the colors that were defined in the branding guidelines, I want to be able to select from those colors to apply them under the settings page. We'll go ahead and hit next. The two-state cohort open closed requirement is central. How do you want to demonstrate across the mockups? Live toggle opened, recommended. Live toggle default closed. Let's just go ahead and choose live toggle. I think what it is going to actually give me on the back end is the ability to toggle things opened and toggle them closed. So when a cohort is open for people to sign up, I could simply toggle this and it's going to go ahead and enable the information about it and how to sign up and all of that stuff. And then when it's closed, it's very easy for me just to close it off. I don't have to think about redesigning any pages or do anything like that, which I think is going to be really cool. So I see that Claude Code has finished here. It looks like here's that page that we've already viewed. And so we can look at that page. We can go and refresh it again because maybe it has had an update. So I'm just going to click on refresh. Doesn't look like anything has changed on this page since we were looking at it a few minutes ago. If you go back to Claude Code, let's just close this preview because you can see it didn't render completely because this is not in a browser. I can try and refresh this, but it's just not rendering the actual styling, and that's okay. So let's close that and let's see exactly what Claude has done. You can see here it says a complete ACF-driven WordPress theme. Great. Imported the design. Verified in the browser. It says to stand it up, it needs ACF Pro. That's something that we have not yet installed in WordPress. So we're going to go back to WordPress. We're going to go down to plugins. We're going to click add plugin. I'm going to hit upload plugin because I have ACF Pro downloaded. We're going to go ahead and hit open and install. And then hit activate plugin. Now, advanced custom fields is either you're installing the free version or you're installing the pro version. You actually don't need both installed at the same time. So it's also mentioning that since I don't have PHP runtime local on my laptop here, it doesn't have the ability to verify and test all of this stuff, which is fine. And it says the brief mentioned accent proposals shown in context, which is fine. It says, want me to also scaffold match CSS variables for the Fluent Community portal. No, we don't really need to do that. And I also don't make a ton of those decisions here within Claude Code. So what I would do is take this confirmation message. I'm actually going to copy this and we're going to go back to our Claude chat. And we're back in our Claude chat where we originally developed our brief. And I'm going to say here, design done and plugin developed in Claude Code. And then I'm just going to paste in that response that we copied from Claude Code and submit it. I like to have this separation of conversation because we did start out in Claude developing this chat. We're in Fable 5 here, a higher model, and I want to be able to have the conversation and share the process here. And then when we need to go out to Claude Design for something, we do. When we need to go out to Claude Code for something, we do. And then we bring all of that status back here. And so this is what it's saying. It says, oh, further along than the plan called for and worth pausing before momentum carries. Claude Code didn't just do the design. It collapsed phases 2, 3, and 4 in one session. Okay, the output sounds genuinely good. Skip the design iteration because I didn't come back here and tell Claude about the design iteration. So it didn't have that context. Then it says the contact form decision. Verification before it touches production. So there's a few things that I need to answer here and provide context for. Since we sent Claude Design straight over to Claude Code, our Claude chat did not have any context. So we're going to come back over to Claude Design, and I'm going to go ahead and download project HTML from our Claude Design system. And we'll do project archive, everything in a zip, and we'll just click extract, and it's going to go ahead and create that file and allow us to download it. So that we have everything together, I'll go into my documents under Jared Hill Build, and we'll just save it there. We'll come back to Claude. I'm going to click plus, add files or photos, go to documents, and we're going to add that design system so that it has all of that information here. And now that that is attached, I'm going to go ahead and answer some of these questions. So after the design system was built, which I have attached the exported design system for you, I went ahead and sent it directly over to Claude Code. And that connection, along with the design brief that we created, was shared to create the plugin. And I answered any questions that it had. So to my understanding, we have a plugin that is ready to be tested. Now, under your question about the contact form, we will be using Fluent Forms, and so there needs to be styling for Fluent Forms so that the form design that was from the design system matches and applies over to any Fluent Forms that we design. Now, as far as FluentCommunity goes, I don't necessarily want to apply any design over to FluentCommunity yet. So your question about the FluentCommunity portal CSS, let's just go ahead and not apply any design to the portal CSS yet. That's something that I can always add later. We do have ACF installed. We're actually using the Pro version of the plugin, and other plugins that we will be using is FluentCart, which is how people will purchase and sign up for a cohort. And then, of course, we're using FluentCRM for email marketing and automation. So I believe we are actually ready to test the WordPress theme at this point. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and hit submit, and it's probably going to spend a moment or two unpacking that big zip file that I just attached. And we're going to go back over to the website because we should be able to install our theme now. So under Appearance and Themes, we're going to click Add Theme. We'll click Upload Theme. We'll hit Choose File. And then we are going to come over here and, we don't have a zip file that we can install. This is the design system, not the actual theme. So we're going to come back over to Claude Code, and I'm going to simply say, please produce an installable theme zip file for WordPress. And hit submit. Now it says it's going to create that zip. It's going to ask for permissions to create that zip. And it built the zip, and we'll just hit allow so that it can test that zip file. And here we go. Now it's giving us some instructions. Go to WordPress, Appearance, Themes, Add, Upload Theme, install and activate ACF Pro, which we already did. And then follow the first time setup in the README. Create the 4 pages, assign the correct templates. and we should be ready to go. So under the OneNote here, it's basically saying that it can't test these things because I don't have PHP running locally on my computer here. I'm fine with that. Let's go back to choose file. You can see here we have the build-jaredhill.zip. We'll hit open, we'll hit install, and we'll hit activate. And it's going to activate that new theme to the site. And we can actually click view site now to view the actual website. You can see it's kind of empty. It doesn't have any of the content, but it has the header here with the different navigation buttons and some other stuff in the footer. We'll go back to the dashboard. And of course, the instructions were to view the README file. And so we can click on this README file here and follow the instructions. It says create 4 pages and assign each template under the page attributes. So we're going to go to pages in WordPress. You can see that we have these FluentCart pages, which is signified by the little FluentCart icon and the name of that page. But we're going to click add page. I'm going to type in home for the name of the page. And then over here under template, you can see that we have some templates to choose from. We have our default, about, contact. We have a couple for the Fluent Community, and then we have the cohort community. So let's actually just start with about first. We'll type about, and we'll choose about and hit publish. You can see it automatically applies everything here and brings in all of the fields that have the sections and content that we can change out, including a place to upload the image. Now that this page has been updated, I can click View Page, and we can see that the page is built out. It just doesn't have the image in place. This is the simple About page that I had asked for. Now we can go up to New, and we'll hit Page. We'll choose the Contact template, and I'll type in Contact as the name of the page, and then we'll hit publish. And then we'll view the page here, and you can see that it has the form that Claude Code built implemented because we hadn't yet given it the instructions for Fluent Forms. And so since this is just a placeholder form, it's not something that's connected to Fluent Forms yet, we will need to come back and give Claude some instructions so that it can update our theme with the appropriate connection to connect this section of our site with the appropriate form. Let's go and create another new page. We'll choose the cohort community, and I'm going to just type in cohort as the name of the page. You can see we have some different tabs here for all of the different content that's going to go on these pages. We'll go ahead and hit publish, and then we can view this page as well. And you can see it's pretty empty. It doesn't have all of the content there yet. And so one of the things that we're going to want to do is provide some screenshots to take back to Claude and show it what we see, because it can't test these things locally. So I'm going to take a screenshot of the home page. We'll view the entire home page, and we'll save that to downloads. So that's saved to downloads. And then we'll go to the about page. We'll save this. We'll go full page. Done. Download. Save. We'll go to, when we clicked on cohort here, it was expecting /community. And so I didn't name the page correctly. So we can either come in and update that, or I could just simply go and update the page, which I named the page cohort. And so maybe I change the name of this from cohort to community. And then I also need to change this to community as well, so it matches the permalink, which is the actual URL to that page. We'll hit update. Then we'll go back to the website itself. And then when I click on cohort, hey, look, there it is, all of the appropriate page content that we should have had. I'll take a full page screenshot of that, and we'll hit done. Now, to take these screenshots, I'm using a Chrome extension, or I'm using the Brave browser, but it's essentially a Chrome extension called Awesome Screenshot. You can easily install that into your Chrome or Brave browser by doing a Google search for Awesome Screenshot Chrome extension, and it makes it very easy for you to take these full page or partial page screenshots of websites just by clicking a button and choosing an option. And now we have screenshots to all of our appropriate pages. You can see here, it's created some CSS, which it wasn't necessarily what I asked it to do, but this is information that it can send over to Claude Code so that it has the appropriate information it needs to apply styling. And so I'm already been working on that in Claude Code, so we probably would just let Claude Code do that. So, but before we do that, let's finish the setup process. It says that we need to assign our home page. So we didn't create that home page yet. Let's click Add Page. We'll just type in home. We didn't have a template for home, so I didn't see one for that. So we're just going to leave it set to default. We'll hit Publish, and then we'll go to Settings, Reading, choose a static page, and then choose Home, which is what it asked us to do. We'll hit Save Changes, and then let's just go and see what happens. Now, we don't really have anything there. We have nothing on the home page because that is empty. And so I think maybe Claude didn't give us the exact connection there. That's fine. We have that done. Now, under Appearance Menus, create a menu. So we need to create the menu right now. It's pulling this in from default. This is just hard-coded. We'd like the ability to customize our own menu and make changes. And so if we go to Dashboard and we go to Appearance and Menus, we'll give this menu a name. We'll call it Main Menu. I'm going to go ahead and click Create Menu. We want this to be our primary navigation. I'm going to add About, Community, Contact directly there. And we'll just drag these to order them specifically. We're going to call this the cohort. And then we'll hit Save Menu. We'll go back and see what Claude has to say. Until a menu is designed, a sensible fallback menu renders, which is the one that we already saw. Now that we've created a menu, it should load our menu. So let's look at our website again and see what it loads. Okay, we've got About, the cohort, and Contact, and Join the cohort, but that turned black. It's no longer a color, or perhaps maybe it wasn't. We need to check and see how we adjust the color to that. And under the configuration, I'm not seeing anything in here about how we would customize the colors. I did ask for settings to be able to make the adjustments here. And so under settings, I'm not seeing anything for our customization or under tools either. So these are things to note that I'm not 100% sure how we're going to customize and make those edits. So these are things to think about and come back to Claude with. But let's just quickly come back here and look at what it has to say for step 4. Open each page and fill in the ACF fields. Every field has a default and helper text. And so we could do that. Open Build Settings, Admin Sidebar, and configure the globals below. Okay, so Build Settings is something that's supposed to show up in the Admin Sidebar of WordPress. So here's Build Settings. Okay, so we've got our Build Settings. This is Build is the name of the theme, and so Build is what it's calling it. So we've got our global cohort state here where we can set cohort open or closed. We can configure our enrollment dates and the deadline of when it closes and what that pricing is. We also can choose our accent. So here's actually where we would choose that. So if I choose Signal Red and hit Update, I bet if we go back and look at the front of the page and maybe refresh things here, we should be able to see that red update. Let's just go ahead and clear our cache. There it is. So we've got the red showing up now, and that's how you configure it. So that was something that I just didn't notice at first, but Build Settings is there. It did, in fact, create what we were looking for. Here's our CTA, or our call to actions when the cohort is opened. It gives us the ability to link these buttons up, and when the cohort's closed, where's the wait list and where do people go for that? Here we can put our Substack URL, so I'll go ahead and add that. We'll add jaredhill.substack.com, and now that's configured because I didn't give it this, or at least I don't think I gave it this ahead of time, so it didn't have that information to fill out. We'll just go ahead and hit update. And then we also have social header and footer, link to jaredhill.com. And then we can also add in social network links, which is great. We'll hit add a social link just to do it. And we'll put in, add in the URL for YouTube, Jared Hill. Now, what's cool is that I didn't tell it to do this. It was in the screenshot from my other website and it had social links. And so it just decided like, he probably wants social links. So let's go ahead and add those. And we'll just go ahead and leave those in place. Now, there is a contact form recipient email where the contact page form is delivered. Because it did build a contact form and put that form on the page, this is configurable and it should work, but it's not going to work as good as using Fluent Forms. And we're going to ask Claude Code to override this pretty soon. So let's just go ahead and hit update. And then we'll go back over to our Claude chat because I know that we're done with our steps now. We have all of this stuff to add here. We have a bit more information for our settings page here, but we're going to go back over to Claude and just see what it had to say. Of course, it gave us that CSS, which I want to rely on Claude Code to write this. And so we're going to ask our Claude chat simply to give us instructions and allow Claude Code to do that. That's something that I didn't tell it to do earlier, so it just assumed that I wanted all of this code generated. Let's see, it's giving us some instructions on that, and then it says, the FluentCart CRM Community handoff in step 4 is where Fluent Suite setup most often have a gap, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to chat with Claude. This is our Claude chat, not about the design, not about code, but we're going to give it some more instructions here. So I actually want Claude Code to handle the generation of the Fluent Form styling CSS. So please provide me with instructions that I can give Claude Code on that. Also, I have installed the theme and it's looking good, but it's missing a lot of the content that was already designed. And I want that content to automatically be added in. It seems like these pages aren't fully configured. And so I want to give Claude Code instructions to preload all of that information in. And if it doesn't have something that it needs, to ask me questions first so I could provide it with that information so that when we produce an updated theme file, it goes ahead and inserts all of that content. So there should be a default state in which this starts where all of the content is already there. And if I want to change it after the installation, that's fine. But this default state should be as close to a finished website as possible. Now, I also did go through the installation steps. I've set up the pages and I've set the home page as the default, but it doesn't appear that the home page has any styling and there wasn't a template to associate with the home page. So I don't know if something's missing there. I do have ACF Pro installed, and I also have a menu that has been created as well. And I have gone through the build settings and looked at those, but there's some empty things there too that I want to make sure that are pre-filled from the get-go. All right, we'll go ahead and it will add all of that. We'll hit submit to give that to Claude. And it's going to take everything that we just told it, and it's probably going to generate instructions for us to give to Claude Code. And this is that two-step process that I like. I like having the conversation here in Claude, and then going over to Claude Code and executing on the instructions there. So it's explaining to me why there's a lot of sections that don't have information in them and why it's returning an empty home page or fields that haven't been updated. So you can see here that it is generating handoff instructions for Claude Code, and it's working through all of that right now. All right, so now we have Claude Code instructions round 2. And so it's giving us some fixes and some additional things to add. And we can simply just download this as an MD file. I'm going to save this under Documents. We'll go here and just save that to the folder. We'll go back over to Claude Code. We're going to add a file, and we're going to give it that round 2 file. And then I'm going to give it some context as well. And so I'll just use Whisperflow again just to talk right into it. So I went ahead and installed the plugin, and everything looks good so far. I went through the first time WordPress setup. Steps 1 through 5 are all done. And I see the information that you've given me for the settings page, but I've noticed that some of those areas are empty. And then as part of the attached file, there are instructions on how to fix some issues that I found, including updating the content, and I've attached screenshots of what the existing pages look like. All right, so we'll go ahead and close that README file. And then I also need to attach those screenshots. And so under our folder, I'm just going to create a screenshots folder so that I could place all these screenshots in that location and not just have a total mess of screenshots in my root folder. We'll go ahead and drag all of these into place here. And now we have those 4 pages ready to go. We'll go back over to Claude Code. I'll hit plus, add files, screenshots. We'll select all those screenshots, hit open, and then we'll hit submit. Now, because we've been at this for a few, I'm just going to go ahead and check my usage and see where we're at. You can see I'm currently at 42%, so I feel like we're doing pretty good. We've got a lot of headroom left in working on our project here and building out this website. So now I can close these instructions over here. And it does give me a little bit more information about what it's created and how things are going to work. And so part of the instructions is that it's going to give me a seeder on my first install. And that seeder is going to import all of that content and put it into the appropriate places, which is what I asked it to do. And then it's asking me to report back what Claude Code says the styling root cause was. If it turns out to be WP head missing from the header, that's a 5-second fix. And this is probably explaining why the homepage wasn't loading. Let's go back over to Claude Code. And so it's basically still just looking through all of the files that we attached and the additional context that we gave it in the prompt. And we'll just go ahead and wait for it to finish. Well, Claude Code is about done, I think, figuring out all of these newest additions. But there are some things that I've started thinking through while I'm waiting that I know that we're going to need. First of all, I actually just did reset the cache again. I went to my caching plugin and purged all, and now the homepage does load appropriately. So it wasn't an issue of anything other than caching. And sometimes that happens when you're working on a website that is on a hosting environment and there's caching implemented. Caching is in place to make the website load as fast as possible. And this is important, especially for those that have slower internet connections, that the website loads cleanly and quickly and doesn't lag. And so sometimes caching could present problems. I just simply cleared all the cache again. And for some reason, that second time made it work. But there's some things that I know that this website's going to need. For example, if a cohort is not opened at the time, where does somebody sign up for a wait list? Well, when you toggle things off, there'll be a wait list, but what do people use to sign up for that? I'm obviously going to need a form in Fluent Forms that people can use to sign up for the wait list. And then I'm also going to need information to put on the cohort sign up so that people can sign up. And so let's go back over to Claude. And I'm going to let Claude know that Claude Code is still working on the round 2 instructions, but I'm going to start to give it some of these thoughts before they escape my mind. So let's do that. So Claude Code is working on the round 2 instructions, but I was able to get the home page to work by clearing the cache. That's probably something that I only told Claude Code, but nonetheless, it is working. And actually, I didn't just tell Claude Code that because there's the information right here about that homepage not loading. So anyways, the homepage is now loading and Claude Code is working on the instructions for round 2. But I'm going to need Fluent Forms for the wait list. And so when I'm on the back end of the website under the settings, or I'm on one of the pages and I choose a form, I need to be able to put a Fluent form in place there. I don't want to use the default form that was wired up in the theme. I want to use the Fluent form that's specific to whatever it is that we're doing and whatever functionality we need. So on the contact page, I need to be able to set the correct Fluent form there. And on the waitlist page where people are signing up to be notified when the next cohort starts, I need to be able to put the appropriate form there. And then, of course, on the sign up page, we're using FluentCart. And so people will go through the FluentCart checkout process. And so I need that button to be able to be set to the add to cart so that I can add the right link. And when somebody clicks on that, it adds it to their cart and then they can go through the checkout process. All right, so we've added that here. I'm also going to tell it something else here, which is I'm just giving you this context for now. I will provide an update when Claude Code is done, and then we can implement this change into a third revision. That way it knows to wait. And if we look at Claude Code, it's asking for some permissions. So we'll go ahead and allow those permissions, and then we'll come back here and submit that information that I just gave it. This is the process of kind of iterating back and forth. As you go to your website and you start to look around and maybe something doesn't make sense, you can come back to Claude and ask it these questions. And sometimes it's as simple as troubleshooting, like resetting the cache. Other times it'll say, hey, actually, maybe you just didn't follow the instructions that I gave you closely enough. And sometimes I've gotten that report back from Claude as well. So here it says the zip is rebuilt cleanly. So it looks like it's almost done over here on Claude Code because it's built the new zip file that we're going to reinstall and overwrite the old theme zip file within WordPress. So we're just going to wait for it to get done here. We can also go back over to Claude and it says noted. And one thing to do right now before Claude Code finishes, tell it explicitly that the homepage styling issue is cache, not a theme bug. It's probably good to go ahead and tell it that. And then it says, here's the round 3 spec as I've captured it. Generalized form picker, not hard-coded forms. Waitlist capability. Cohort open CTA becomes FluentCart add-on to cart. Or FluentCart add to cart. 2 questions to have answered for when we write the round 3 instructions. Is the waitlist a page or a state? And close state button behavior. And that's essentially questions that it's going to have for us. We'll go back over to Claude Code, click accept, and now it's building out the final zip. And you can see it's made version 1.1.0. Here we've got the zip, and let's just wait for it to finish with whatever instructions that it has for us. Here we go. Now it's printing the instructions. It says upload the new zip. So while it finishes that, let's go back to the website. Let's go down to themes. We're going to click add theme. We'll click upload theme, choose file. And then we have our new zip file here. It's grayed out. Sometimes I just have to cancel, hit choose file again, and then there it is. We'll hit open and install. And it should tell us, it should tell us we're overwriting what you already have. Version 1.0, now with version 1.1.0, we'll hit replace installed with uploaded. We'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll just go back to the build settings here and then go see what Claude has for us. So now looking at the instructions, it says under build settings, click seed fill defaults. That's awesome. So let's go back here. And you can see it says default content, fill any empty page fields and settings with the theme's built-in defaults. Let's click seed fill defaults. And it's went ahead and done that. Now, if we go to the website and look around, we should have content in all the sections. Maybe we need to clear some cache. Let's just go ahead and do that. I still see some empty sections here. Let's go ahead and just edit the page and see if there's anything empty here. Yeah, these blocks are still empty, so I don't know why it didn't fill those out. Let's go look at the other pages and see if it filled in all of those sections. That page I think was already fine. There's empty sections here too. Let's just make sure if we go to edit that nothing changes, how it's covered. Yeah, these steps are not filled out. And so I don't know, maybe we need to generate these pages again. I'm just going to go to all pages. Let's actually just delete the community page. So we'll just hit trash, and I'm just going to go ahead and make sure we empty the trash. We'll go back to all. I'll click add page. We'll type in community. We'll go and apply the cohort community to it and hit publish. It's empty still. Well, let's go to build settings and just hit seed again and see what happens. I don't know. I'm not seeing that content being appropriately updated because I deleted that page. Now we need to add it back to the menu. This is part of that process of kind of iterating and figuring out what needs to be done, what didn't work right, and then going back and forth with Claude to make the necessary updates. Let's just look at that community page one more time. Yeah, it's still empty. So let's go back and just make sure that we're not missing a step. Your current install was active before the seeder existed, so its pages are empty. This one click fills home plus every page and setting with built-in content. Yeah, okay, well, it didn't really do that. It's coming up with what it thought the issue was with the homepage problem, which we fixed with caching. We've got 2 layers of default architecture here, which fine, don't really need to get too detailed with that. It talked about building out the support for styling for the Fluent Forms so they match our website. And then it has some questions here. So let's just go ahead and copy that entire message. We'll go back over to Claude and I'll tell it that Claude Code is finished. And then we'll paste in the response. And we'll just submit it. Now it's coming back and saying, okay, everything came back good and it has the questions that we need, but we're also going to need to tell it that some page sections are still empty and we're going to have to help it understand what the problem is. And so what we could do is take a visible area screenshot. So we'll just choose the visible part and it's going to show that full arc and number 1, number 2 are empty. We're just going to save that screenshot. We'll download it. And we'll save it in our screenshots folder. And I'm just going to add to the file name so that I know what it is, no content community. And we'll hit save. We'll go back to Claude here. And we need to answer its questions. And then also I'm going to provide it with that screenshot. So we'll choose that latest screenshot, the no content screenshot. And I'm just going to start talking and answer these questions and give it some visual insight into the problem that we're still experiencing. Okay, so the seeder button that allows us to automatically insert everything seems to just have inserted the content that already was part of the templates, and that wasn't missing. As you can see in part of the screenshot here, that there are some sections that don't have content. And that content was in the preview, the HTML preview that I received. And so I'll go ahead and attach that HTML preview so that you can see it. But answering the questions, number 1, cohort state closed waitlist. We will be pre-launching this first. And so the pre-launch will be people signing up, and this will be for the first cohort. Once this cohort's done, it would then move into a closed state. And then if everything goes well and I decide to do another cohort, that's where the cohort opened, cohort closed state would make sense. And so when the cohort is open, people need to be able to sign up by clicking on a link that takes them to adding the item to the shopping cart and checking out and making a payment. When it's closed, it needs to go to a wait list. And part of signing up for that wait list is using a Fluent form to put in their email address, which then adds them to the wait list. Number 2, cohort dates. We can go ahead and leave the placeholder in place for now because I don't know what those dates are going to be. Number 3, let's just go ahead and set the pricing at $199 per year founding member for right now. I don't think that's how we're going to price things. I think that if you join a cohort, then you get access to the entire community, and that includes 1 year. And I'm not sure what the pricing is going to be for that yet, but you can just go ahead and leave that pricing in place as $199 for now. The Substack URL I will type in at the end of this. The waitlist URL I don't have yet because I don't know if we need that to be an actual page or if that's simply something that pre-populates when you switch it into closed status and then it just adds the form there. It's not going to be a very elaborate form. I think it's probably just an email address that we need, but it could be a more elaborate form. So right now I think instead of having an actual waitlist page, just have the ability to put a Fluent form where somebody can put their first name and their email address. Number 6, I went ahead and manually added a footer social already, so I don't need to have you pre-populate those. I can add those in manually. The contact form ID in Fluent Forms is form ID number 1. And so that will be for the contact form. The statement quote is great. I like the statement quote. It was pre-populated, and we can go ahead and leave that in. All right, now I'm going to make sure that I click in this box, and we will apply the text, and I'll just delete the last little line here that it recorded. Now it says 2 decisions from last time still gate the round 3. Waitlist page or state. I kind of talked about this already during these instructions. And then closed state primary CTA. Is it a waitlist form? Substack, demoted to secondary? I think we've already answered those questions there. It says once you make those 2 calls, I'll draft the round 3 instructions. Great. Also 2 housekeeping notes on Claude Code's closing offers. It asked again about wiring the Fluent Community portal. So we need to give it those instructions. You've already decided not yet, so say yes. So say no, or it may do it unprompted. And so yeah, we'll just add this in. For the Fluent Community portal, the URL for that is /portal. And I want a way for people to be able to get to the portal. So we need a button somewhere, whether it's added to the menu. We need a way for people to be able to access the portal. All right, that should be good enough. We'll go ahead and submit. And now what Claude is going to generate is a round 3 of revisions that we can then take over to Claude Code. Oh, I actually forgot to attach that HTML file, so I need to do that. Let's go to Files, let's go to Preview and HTML and hit Open and add that HTML file. And then it says now the screenshot tells a precise story, and it's worth understanding because it exposes a architectural gap, not a content gap. Look at what's empty. The timeline has the numbers 1, 2, but no titles or descriptions. The cards have their checkboxes, but no text. Those are exactly the repeater fields, the very thing Claude Code diagnosed in round 2. Repeater defaults never auto-create rows, and the seeder was supposed to solve that. So great, we have that here. It says your answers also resolved both open decisions. Great, and it's working on presenting the file, but then I also need to give it this HTML. I don't know if it's going to need that. I think it figured out exactly what I was talking about. And this is something that already exists in the files that Claude Code has access to. So I'm not sure that it's going to need that. Let's just go ahead and see what Claude has to say here as it wraps this up. Okay, it also says that I didn't give it the Substack URL. And let's also go and create the additional form that it needs for the waitlist. And so let's go to New Blank Form. We'll go ahead and choose a name field here. Just click on that and it adds it here. We'll do first and last name, that's fine. And then we'll do email. Now I want these to be required. I want to know the person's first name at least and the email address. So those are required fields. And then I need to give this a name. So we'll just click right here and I'm going to overwrite this with waitlist sign up. And we'll hit rename and save the form. I don't need to configure any of the rest of the form yet. Confirmation message is something that we'll want to come back to and not have it say, thank you for your message, we'll get in touch. Obviously, I'm going to want them to get a confirmation message that makes sense, considering they just signed up for a wait list. But nonetheless, well, let's go back and get the ID for this particular form. And the ID for this form is going to be 3. So we'll go back and say Fluent form ID for waitlist form is 3. And of course, it asks for the HTML file. Let's go ahead and just hit submit, and we'll see what it does. It's probably going to update these instructions a little bit, so we'll wait to see what it does, if it updates the instructions at all. And then if it does, we'll then take this instruction over to Claude Code and deploy it. All right, here we go. It's presented the additional or the updated file here with some additional information. Let's go ahead and just download this. We will then save it to our project folder as round 3 addendum. Great. Let's go over to Claude Code, hit plus, and let's attach that addendum file. We'll go ahead and do that. Hit open. And let's just look. Let's make sure it didn't ask to attach anything additional here. Let's see. Further, doesn't look like it has anything that it asked us to provide along with it. All right, so Claude Code is finished, and it's giving me some updates on what it worked on. It did find a bug that caused the issue with not filling in all of our content. Sometimes that's going to happen. And then it gave us our waitlist. It's going to link up that waitlist form and gives us some instructions here on what to do. So we're going to go ahead and replace our theme again. We'll go over to Appearance and Themes, and we're going to upload the new file. This is going to be the next version of our theme. It's grayed out again, so we'll just hit cancel, and then we'll select that file, hit open, hit install. You can see here it says version 1.2. I thought we were bumping to version 1.3. Now it says version 1.2, so perhaps it didn't update the version number. That's fine. Now let's go to build settings, and let's seed the defaults here and see if things work again. Let's hit update, and then let's go to the actual website and look and see if we have information. And we do. Look, it filled in everything. Everything is where it's supposed to be. Let's look under the community page. Yeah, it's almost all there. The what's included is not, and perhaps it just didn't have the content to fill that in. But what's included is not. And then we have this founding member annual pricing button here. It doesn't look like it filled in the correct information there, but that's okay. These are things we can come in here and update. How joining works, founding member annual pricing. So I could put in $199 per year and just update that, and then hit update. We might need to come in and fill out some of these other sections, like the steps here. Obviously don't have any content in them. We could go back and forth all day long, or we can just manually type in that content. You can see here now the $199 a year. You probably need to work on explaining a little bit more about what this includes. This is all stuff that we can continue to update. Also, the footer looks a little wonky compared to what we saw in the preview, but that's okay. We're getting much closer than we were. If we go to join the cohort, obviously we don't have a shopping cart link yet, which is fine. It did wire up the button to the Substack, and so that's good. That's correctly linked, and it wasn't before. If we go to the build settings here, let's look at switching cohort state to closed, and then let's just leave that alone and hit update, and let's see what it did as far as embedding our forms. So the cohort is closed. Oh, well, it still says enrollment open. Maybe we need to clear some cache here just to make sure that this all updates appropriately. There we go. Next cohort waitlist opened. Here's the form. It actually embedded the form, which is great. And then we have follow along on Substack. That's great. If it changed the button up here to follow along on Substack. If we go under community, we also have the form here as well. So we don't have a dedicated waitlist page. I told it not to do that yet. And so everything is kind of gray. It's not as exciting as when the cohort's open. It's really neat that it has these two different states. And this is all stuff that did not take us much effort to build out. So with that said, we have essentially a website that is pretty close to done as far as the information goes. We have a lot of back-end stuff that we're going to need to do here. So let's just go ahead and we'll just leave cohort open because we're still building, we're still updating things. But since we don't have all of the correct content, we'll have to clear cache again to get the right state. There we go. Now we're open. To get all of the correct content in place here, like in this section, what's included, let's just take a screenshot. I'm actually just going to select this section of the homepage and we'll go over to Claude. I'm going to drop this right in here and we need to give it our instructions here. We need to tell Claude what Claude Code finished. So let's just copy and paste this in here. We'll do that. That's been added. And then I need to tell it that I need the content for this section on the homepage. Claude Code finished running this third update, but some of the areas on the homepage and the community page don't have content. So let's start with this section on the homepage, which I've included in a screenshot. Tell me what I need to add so that I can copy it and then paste it into the appropriate sections in the back end of the website. All right, so we'll just go ahead and submit this. And now instead of just going back and forth and reseeding and running updates to the actual theme, we don't really need to go down this rabbit hole much further. Let's just have Claude give us the content that we want in that section. So it's going to look at that screenshot, identify what section that is, and then it's going to give us the content that needs to go in those places. And so here we have the rows and the content. So let's go and we'll just edit this page. Since we're on the home page, we'll click on edit. I think the what's included is the area that we had that was blank. And so this is the what's included section. So we'll just go and type in course episodes and then paste in the text. So weekly live calls, and then we'll add that. I don't want it to have text next to that. So we just want the actual text, not the instructions. And then if I wanted to add a third row, and it gave us a third row if we wanted that. So row 3, click add third row, community access, and then we need to add the text for that as well. So let's go ahead and hit plus. We'll put community access, which I misspelt. So we'll correct the spelling there and paste that in. And then we need to reposition these appropriately. And then we'll hit update. We'll view our page and we have all 3 of our sections there, which is great. So now we need to go over to the community page because that one was missing some text in the what's included section. Let's go ahead and select the what's included and on our community page. And we'll go back to Claude. We'll drop this in. Before we start typing, let's just see what it had here. It said the eyebrow and heading are already rendering in your screenshot, so only those cards are needed. So it's giving us that additional information. So maybe we don't actually submit this yet. Let's just go and follow these instructions of adding the how cohorts work on the home page. Let's go back to our home page. We'll click edit. I mean, I guess all that information is in there, which is fine. The what it covers is empty. Let's see if it gives us that information. It doesn't, or at least I'm not 100% sure. So let's just instead take a screenshot of the whole community page, and then we can have Claude provide us the appropriate information. So I'm just going to say, okay, so it looks like some of the content insertions worked, and I was able to insert the additional rows that I asked for previously. But as you can see in this screenshot of the community page, there are some sections that are still missing. So give me the information that needs to go in those specific sections, and I will manually paste those in. All right, we'll go ahead and hit submit for that. So here we go under row titles here for what's included. We can copy this, course episodes and the text, weekly live calls and the text. And then we'll need to add a third one for community access and the text for that one. Great. And we'll just hit save before going to one of these other tabs. But we actually put what's included under what's covered. So we need to move this over to what's included. And then we'll add a third one there for that, drag that into the appropriate position, what it covers, community access, and paste that one in. And then let's just hit update, and then under what it covers, we'll correct that. It doesn't look like it gave us the information for what's covered. So let's just go to who it's for. This is for you if, and then there's 3 items that need to be added to that section. Who this is for. This is for you if, and let's just go ahead and add an item here. Add an item, paste that in. Add another item and paste that in. Add an item, and then we'll add that one and hit save there. We'll update this. I think we have the FAQs that are next. So we'll add a question. Do I need to know how to code? ? And answer. What's the time commitment? Paste the answer. And what happens when the cohort ends? And paste the answer for that one. Okay, so now under what's covered, we need to remove these because those weren't supposed to go there, but we need to have arc steps. And so let's ask for the arc steps under what's covered. I need the arc steps for under what's covered. And we'll hit submit on that. And then it should provide us with that information as well. And here we go. We have the 5 of them. So let's go ahead, and the first one is idea, and we'll paste in the text for that. Idea and the text. We'll add a step. Then it's conversation and iteration, and the text for that step. Hit add a step. Build is next. Then deploy and the text. And our last step is maintain and the text for that one. And we'll go ahead and hit update, and everything is successful. Let's view the page, look at our page. Okay, great. That is showing up the way that it should. What's included shows up, who this is for. We've got the cohort, how joining works, and then we also have our FAQs, which I'll probably add to and elaborate on a bit more. This is pretty basic, but so far that's looking good. And the homepage is looking pretty good as well. You know, we could build this out. We can add more information here. We don't have a background image or hero image in this section yet or anything like that. But let's also look on our contact page. It says, add your Fluent Forms ID to this page to show. So we need to add the Fluent Forms ID. So let's go ahead and just type in ID1 because that's the ID for our Fluent Form from earlier for contact. Let's hit view page, and boom, we have it here, but it doesn't look like it's rendering the styling. So let's just purge cache just to see if maybe the caching is affecting our styling. It's not. We have a blue button that actually doesn't look right. And then of course our footer is a little bit off as well. So let's first select our contact form and then go back over to our Claude chat and drop this in. And then I'm also going to grab a screenshot of our footer and we'll drop that in as well. And then I'll give it the instructions. So I applied the Fluent form for the contact page, but as you can see, there is a blue button rendering rather than the matching styling. So that needs to be updated. And then I also have included a screenshot of the global website footer, which seems to have some styling issues as well. Let's make sure to update those. And we will hit submit. So we are getting pretty close to having most of what we need done here. Obviously, we have not yet gone into Fluent Community to configure anything for our cohort or any courses that we're going to add. We haven't configured FluentCRM yet, and we haven't configured our actual cohort products that people are going to be able to sign up and pay for yet either. All right, Claude has diagnosed the bugs, and it has a bit of information here. It's going to create a file. This will be another MD file that we can then send over to Claude Code so that it can produce those necessary updates. And we have that created. So it says, while Claude Code works, flipping build settings cohort state to closed is your highest value manual test. It renders the inline waitlist form and answers its open question about hero placement. And the FluentCart product creation remains the last piece. only you can do. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. This is round 3.5, so let's throw it in our appropriate folder and then go over to Claude Code and attach this, round 3.5. And I'm just going to say see attached updates, and we'll let it go. Looks like everything is done. It's giving us some things that it still needs. It needs a FluentCart checkout URL. It needs cohort dates. That's fine. Let's go ahead and take this over to Claude and paste this in and tell it Claude Code is done and submit. And let's see what Claude has to say here. It says good round, one correction, worth registering, including for the recorded content. My footer diagnosis was wrong. I called it CSS written against blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's go and upload our latest version of our theme. We are now on version 1.3. So let's go to our folder and upload our new version of our theme and hit install and replace with uploaded. We'll go back to the home page. Let's go ahead and just purge cache just to make sure that we've cleared that out. And let's go and look and see what our footer looks like. Hey, it looks good. We've got our navigation items where they should be, and the elsewhere items where they should be as well. So that all looks good. And the rest of the website is absolutely looking great. Round 3.5. And I'm just going to say see attached updates, and we'll let it go. Now, while it does that, let's actually go back over to the website, and we're going to create our FluentCart product. This is going to be the product that people will sign up for. And when they actually sign up and pay for this, FluentCart is then going to give instructions to FluentCommunity to give the appropriate access. Obviously, when somebody makes the purchase, the website's going to get their name and their email address, and then their name and their email address will be created in FluentCRM and in FluentCommunity, and they'll have access to the appropriate sections. And so let's first go under products, and we'll hit add product, and we're going to call this cohort number 1, and this is a digital product. And we'll hit add product. Now, I don't want to write all of this stuff out. I actually want Claude to generate some of this stuff for me. So I'm going to give it some instructions. Okay, I am ready to create the product in FluentCart. And so give me the title, a short description, and a long description for this product. We'll go ahead and hit send. All right, and so we have the title, Build with Jared, founding member, first cohort. I think that's a great product title. I'll go ahead and paste that in. I might actually want to just go with a shorter one. I did feel like that was a little bit long. So let's just go ahead and update that with the shorter product title. And then we have our short description here. Great, copy and paste that over. And we'll just read it. 1 seat in the first 30-day cohort plus a year inside Build with Jared community. Course episodes, weekly live calls, and a room full of people building their own tools with AI. Great, I love that. Let's go for the long description here and copy that, and we'll go back and paste that into the long description of the product. You can see it even added the appropriate formatting. Everything looks good. Of course, I'm going to spend more time reading through this just to make sure that it has everything that I want. But it looks good right now. So let's go ahead, and for our price, it's $199. This is a subscription, and so we want $199 at the interval of yearly. So that means that when somebody signs up and purchases this, it's going to create a subscription that will renew once a year. Obviously, they'll be able to go into their account because FluentCart has this functionality where they can cancel their subscription at any time or set it not to auto-renew. But we're setting this up as a subscription product. And so at $199 yearly interval, that's the way this is going to be set up. And as I mentioned before, I don't know that this is going to be the final price. This is just the way that we are setting things up right now. And then for the actual URL slug here, which is the actual address, I think I want it to be the same as the title. So let's just go ahead and update that to be the same as the title. And we'll set that, and then we'll go to publish, and we'll just make this public because Nobody's going to see it right now. We actually do have this product created now, which is great, but it's not connected to anything. It's not connected to Fluent Community. So somebody could buy this. We can see that Claude Code is still working on making those necessary updates. So while it does that, let's actually go into Fluent Community down here, and we can go into the portal and start to build out our actual community portal. You can see here that this is empty Fluent Community. It doesn't have anything in here. It has essentially a chat feed. We haven't added any spaces. We haven't added any courses. I'm the only member, so there's nobody else in here. And I'm the only member, so there's nobody else in the leaderboard either. So what we need to do is create some spaces. We're going to have courses, which what you're watching right now is going to be one of those courses that will show up, and that's going to be automatically available to anybody that joins. So there isn't any purchase configuration that we're going to need to add for this course. But if any other courses get added and those are available individually for sale, we can add those in here. Then we also have spaces. And so spaces are where we're going to add the cohort that people get access to. But then we're also going to add a couple of other rooms where there can be general conversation where people can share their work. And these are areas that I might want to make available regardless of what cohort you're in. So let's go ahead and create a new space. This is a discussion space. So we'll select that and hit next. And we're just going to call this one general. And under general, I can give it a description, but let's make this easier on ourselves. Now that we have this set up, let's come over here and give Claude the job of coming up with what we want these different spaces to be called. While I'm waiting for Claude Code to finish with the updates, I am setting up Fluent Community. And so I want to create a couple of spaces in Fluent Community, which are essentially discussion forums that people can use regardless of what cohort they're in. I want a general discussion. I also want one where people can share screenshots of their project. And then we're going to need to create one for the first cohort as well. And the first cohort will be connected to the FluentCart product. I need names for these spaces and short descriptions for them. And let's go ahead and submit that request. And here we go. Under general discussion, it's saying call it the commons. And then the description here, we'll go ahead and select that. And so we'll come in and paste that description in here, general discussion. I'll call this the commons. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense. I don't know if I like that or not, calling it the commons. The commons feed is too clever. General, yeah, too clever. Don't like that. All right, so show your work is the next one. Let's go ahead and create. But first we need to finish our settings here. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Access is private. Anyone can view the basic info of the space. Any member can view posts without joining. Yeah, we want everybody to get access to this. If they have access to the actual portal here, then we want them to be able to see this. Who can view space members? Obviously members only. Let's click next. And then we have some customization here. And I think everything looks good here. We can add topics later and thumbnail featured image for this space later. I'm just going to go ahead and create it. And now we have that general tab created. But it didn't add this space to the sidebar. So let's actually just come in and go to space settings. And we need to add it to a menu group. So let's put it under Get Started and then hit Save Changes. The Get Started menu group is there by default. I just forgot to add that. You can see now it shows up over here. Let's go back to Spaces. Let's click New Space, Discussion Space, and then we can create the Show Your Work. We can give it a custom emoji. I don't know what emoji to choose, so we'll just choose this one for now. And then under the description, we'll paste our description. Here's where you choose the menu group that it's going to go in. We'll then put it to public, members only, hit next, and then everything else is fine. And now we have show our work over here on the left-hand side. It says 2 setup notes. While you're at it, make cohort hidden private with access granted via FluentCart. Obviously, it's just reminding me that that's what needs to be done. Let's go ahead and add our cohort space now. And so what we also probably want to do is add another section over here for cohorts, because I don't want that under get started. So under settings and under space groups, we need to add a new section. So we'll add a new group and we'll call this cohorts. We'll give it a slug. We'll just call that cohorts as well. We'll hit create. And then from here, we can also add another space just by clicking plus. We'll choose discussion space, hit next. We'll call this cohort 1 and then paste the description in here for that. And then I want to ask it what emojis we should use. Which emojis should we use for each of these? And we'll get its input on emojis. I can also see over here that Claude Code needs some permissions so that it can create these files. So we'll just give it those permissions. Now it's giving us those emojis. Let's also just give Claude Code its permission once again. We've got the chat emoji. That's a good one. We should use that. Maybe tools for show your work, and then the obvious pick for cohort 1. So that's great. Let's just switch back over and finish creating our cohort 1. Does need to be private. And it's set to a default lock screen, but what we'll want to do eventually is come back and redirect this to a URL. So if somebody doesn't have access to this cohort because they haven't paid for it and it isn't connected to their account here, then it would redirect them to the page where they could purchase and sign up for that cohort. Now, people should have access for that. And obviously, once a cohort is closed and it's no longer accepting members, then we would not want it to redirect to a URL. We might actually want it to redirect to the waitlist page. So that way, if somebody does click on it, it takes them to the waitlist page. But nonetheless, we'll just leave that by default for now. We'll hit next. I think we're fine with all of these sections for right now as well. So we'll hit create. And now we've got all of these created. Let's go back to home. And you can see we've got our getting started sections and our cohort. Let's update those. Let's actually go into the appropriate spaces and edit. We'll edit those emojis. So we'll choose the chat bubble for this one. So the next step is going to be configuring FluentCart the rest of the way. We went and created a product, but we didn't really do anything else. So let's go into FluentCart and go under settings and look through the settings that are in FluentCart. We've got the name. We did not add a logo yet. We're going to leave this under test mode because I don't want anybody checking out and actually making a payment or anything like that. Let's add our state. Let's add our information here. If you want to add your appropriate business details, you can do that if you need to. And everything else looks good, but let's change the weights. Even though I'm not shipping anything, I'm just going to go ahead and set these just for the sake of it and hit save. Now under page setup, this is all something that was configured when we first went through the setup and created those default pages automatically. Those are fine. Under product page, these are just some defaults. We'll just go ahead and leave alone. Let's look under cart and checkout here. We want user account created enabled, which it does. It says create user account automatically after payment. This means that when somebody checks out and their payment is complete, it's going to create an account for them because they need a username and a password to log in to the site so that they can manage not only their subscription to the site, but also gain access to the portal as well. Under checkout fields, there's information that we're going to need to make sure that's enabled. So we want first name, last name. That's required. They're going to need their billing information because a payment is going to be made. So that's fine. But we don't need their shipping information. So we're going to go ahead and disable all shipping items. And then we're going to also add a terms and conditions, and we'll set this as required. And for right now, since we're here, I'm just going to ask Claude to write a simple terms and conditions. I'm currently configuring FluentCart and I need a terms and conditions for people to agree to during the checkout. So please write a simple terms and conditions for this process. I will also have a terms and conditions page that will be available at build.jaredhill.com/terms that will have terms and conditions of the entire system. This is essentially just terms and conditions of the subscription payment for the cohort. All right, so I gave it as much context as I feel that it needed, and it's going to go ahead and write that hopefully small, simple terms and conditions for me. And then later on, I'll build out a privacy policy page because we'll need that. I'll build out a terms and conditions page because we'll need that as well. And so it says draft plain language terms. Yep, that's fine. And it's going to go ahead and create those details for me. Now it looks like it's actually going to hard code the pricing in the terms and conditions. I don't necessarily need it to do that. This is a general terms and conditions as part of the checkout process. Their terms and conditions of what they're purchasing should be according to the actual product that we created, which is that cohort. So I'm going to need to update this. And there's also some things in here that it says need to be confirmed. So let's just have Claude update this. So I don't want the pricing to be hard coded into the purchase terms because this is just for checkout. Obviously, they're going to be checking out a product, and that product will have its own pricing. So please don't add pricing to this. And also, I don't need the renewal scope added in here as well. I will have more details about this on the actual terms and conditions page, but you can mention in this the full terms and conditions page for additional information. All right, we'll go ahead and submit this. And then it should come in here and kind of update the details. I guess I didn't give it information on refunds, and so I'm probably going to have to go in and update that too. And so let's see what it's done. It's moved any of the confirmations that it was looking for, and everything actually looks good. So for this, I'm actually just going to copy it to my clipboard, and then we'll go back to the settings page and we will paste all of that in and then just hit save. And so now, as part of the checkout process, they have to agree to the terms and conditions. And that's important to have so that people know what to expect. Now, under payment settings, we need to connect this to a payment processor. FluentCart accepts all sorts of different payment processors. Stripe is the payment processor that I'm going to use. So you would pick the appropriate one that you're going to be using and click Manage. And then I can go ahead and connect with Stripe right here. So I'm going to click on Connect with Stripe. I'm going to log into my Stripe account. So I'm going to connect it to my e-learning account, Learn with Jared. We'll click on Connect. And then it's brought us back to FluentCart and everything is connected. But we do need to configure these webhook URLs because when somebody goes and makes a purchase in Stripe, Stripe needs to send back a notification to the website that the purchase was complete. And so this actually does need to be connected. So I'm going to go to dashboard.stripe.com. I'm going to click on Developers down in the bottom left-hand corner and choose Webhooks. I'm going to copy this webhook to my clipboard and hit Add Destination. I then need to select what types of events send notifications. And so you can see here it says checkout session completed, charge refunded. So checkout session completed, and then charge refunded, charge refund updated, charge succeeded, invoice paid, invoice payment failed, customer subscription deleted, and customer subscription updated, and then hit continue. It's to a webhook endpoint. We'll hit continue. And then I need that webhook URL again. So just make sure that it's copied to my clipboard. And then we will paste this into place and hit create destination. Now that's connected and I can go ahead and hit save, and the settings are saved and it's connected and the payment method is configured. Now under email configuration, I need the from name to be Jared Hill. Email is hi@jaredhill.com. And then we'll just go ahead and disable powered by FluentCart, and we'll leave this all blank for right now. This is stuff I can come back and configure later. Reminder emails. We want reminder emails to go out if a subscription is renewing. I absolutely want this because I hate it when subscriptions renew without getting a reminder. So I want that 30-day out reminder We can set that custom here. We'll just go ahead and set that. Under notifications, these are the type of notification emails that people will get, and I can go in and customize these. I won't do that right now. And then under features and add-ons, there are some additional features that we can add here and some additional plugin add-ons that we can add if we needed those. But now our FluentCart is set up, and now all we need to do is configure the integrations between FluentCart and FluentCommunity and FluentCRM. So now that we are under integrations, I can click Add Integration. We'll go to FluentCRM. This feed title we'll call Add New Member. We'll add them to the lists of members. And this is not going to add them to the actual cohort. We don't want to add them to the cohort through this. We want to add them to the cohort through the actual product itself, because later on, when we add new products for new cohorts, we want to set that trigger up from the product level, not from the store level. So when somebody completes a checkout, it doesn't matter what product they purchase or what they sign up for, they're going to be added as a member here. And then we can just look and see everything else looks good. I'm going to disable double opt-in because since they are making a purchase, I'm going to consider that the opt-in. So that way they don't have to click anything else. They're automatically going to be opted in. And then we'll choose on event and then order paid for payment/subscription. We'll create the Fluent CRM feed. And so now that is connected and they have been given access to that. Now we'll go to Fluent Community and we're going to give general access to Fluent Community. We can give them spaces, which would be general and show your work. So they're going to get access to those spaces. If we had a course updated yet, we can give them access to that here. We can mark their community profile as verified because they made a purchase, and so that technically verifies them. And then we'll leave remove from selected courses spaces on refund, or if their subscription expires. And then we want on event trigger, order paid, just like we set up in the last one. We'll click continue for that. So now we have the store configured to give access for anybody who makes a purchase, regardless of what cohort they're in. All right, so now let's go into our actual product and configure giving access to the appropriate cohort. So let's go into that product. You can see here under integrations, we can add an integration. So we can add Fluent CRM integration. We want to add to cohort 1. And we'll under lists add students as well. So we'll add them to a separate list and then we'll add them to the cohort 1 tag. We'll disable the double opt-in. The event trigger is going to be on the order paid, same thing as before. And we'll click create feed. Now we also need to add them to the appropriate Fluent community group. So add to cohort 1. And we give them access to that cohort 1 space. And then if there were any associated courses to this cohort 1, we would add that. And then we'll choose event trigger on that paid subscription. And then we'll hit create the community feed. So now we have everything configured. If somebody comes to the website, okay, so we're getting pretty close to having everything fully functional here. There's a few things that I still need to test. The product itself is not rendering correctly. So when I go to the actual product and I want to view the product, I'm getting this page and it's not actually rendering the product. So there's something going on here, and I think the theme may actually be overriding something. And so I need to check with Claude on that. So we're going to go ahead and just chat with Claude and see if we could figure this out. So I have a product added to FluentCart, and when I go to view the actual product, I seem to get some empty WordPress page, and the title of the page is writing, just the word writing, and then it has today's date underneath that. And so I've already went to permalinks and troubleshooted. So that's a basic WordPress troubleshoot that didn't fix the problem, but something is overriding the ability for that product to display. And let's just go ahead and submit that. One thing that I can do though is I don't necessarily need a product page. I want a direct add to cart, and there's a direct checkout link that I could get right here. I'm just going to paste that and let's see what that actually does. So let's just hit that, and you can see here it actually takes us right to the checkout page, with all of the information. I definitely don't like the way the terms are rendering and the fact that it displays all of this information here. So I think I'm actually just gonna say like agree to terms, and that's it. I'll have a terms and conditions page. I'm not gonna have this big old block of terms there. So that's something that we need to update. And then it says no valid public key found for the checkout. Obviously, I'm in test mode, and that might be another problem, is that my site is in test mode. Let's actually put it in live mode and then go back and see what happens. We should have the correct credit card field there now. And you can see it does. It's actually populating correctly, which is great. But if we click on the actual product, we're still getting an error here with that. Let's see if Claude had something to say. So it's not FluentCart failing. It probably has to do with theme support, which is great. So it says paste this to Claude Code. It didn't actually create me a file this time. It's just a short round 3.6. So we're just going to paste this into Claude Code and have Claude Code run this. And it probably just needs to add some support so that the theme knows how to handle this and it doesn't overwrite what FluentCart is trying to do. So very simple thing for Claude Code to handle, but let's go into that terms and conditions and update that, because that's something I didn't think it was going to print the entire block of the terms and conditions. I'm actually just going to ask Claude to give me like one sentence about agreeing to the terms and conditions, so that way we don't have that block of text there. So the short terms of conditions that we wrote earlier is being rendered in full on the checkout page. And I simply want a short statement about having agreed to the terms and conditions. And then if somebody wants to view the terms and conditions, they can look in the footer, and in the footer of the website, there will be a link to the terms of conditions, the terms and conditions, and privacy policy and other pages. But I just want a one sentence agreement for the checkout page. Can you please write that? Okay, and we'll hit submit. And while it's writing that, let's go back to FluentCart. We'll go to settings, and then we will look for the appropriate section. I can't remember what that's under. Oh yeah, it was at the bottom of the checkout fields. Let's just go back to here, and it says, by completing this purchase, you agree to the cohort purchase terms and conditions. That's fine. We'll just copy and paste that into place instead. Paste, save. We'll go back to the product. We'll get that direct checkout URL, paste that in, and now we have, that looks much better. Check the box, boom. If people want to read it, it'll show up down here. That's great. Let's go ahead and give Claude Code the permissions that it needs to finish what it's doing. I know that this checkout page looks good, and this is what people are actually going to go to anyway if they are going to sign up. I don't need them to go to a separate page that looks like a product page. We actually want them to go straight to this checkout. So let's go to our build settings. Let's go to our CTA, and here's the FluentCart checkout link. We're going to go ahead and paste that link in place here and then hit update. And then there are some links on our individual pages. And so as we go look at our individual pages, like this button here, we'll want to edit this page. Oh, it actually says show the primary CTA. So I think it's going to pull that CTA in from the settings, which is great. I probably just need to purge our cache and refresh the page. And yes, actually join the cohort is going to take us straight to that checkout page. Join the cohort here is going to take us straight to the appropriate page. So nothing else to update other than just that. Fantastic. This was very simple. This button's also updated. And so it's one place in the settings that updates all the buttons, which makes it super simple. All right, so it's finished building version 1.4. Essentially what our theme didn't have is instructions on what to do for newly created pages that aren't templated pages that we've already set up. And so there wasn't a singular.php file in the actual file structure. That's something that it needs in order to basically do what we're asking it to do. So now let's just go back to appearance. We're going to upload our version 1.4. So we'll go in and select our latest build of our theme, hit open, hit install, hit replace with uploaded. We'll go back to our site. We can then purge our cache just to make sure that we're purged and cleared out. And I didn't mention this earlier. You might not have this specific caching plugin installed. This is specific to the environment of my site on xCloud and the way that I have it set up. There may be another cache clearing button up here, or perhaps maybe you don't have cache installed at all. And there wouldn't be a button. And then you might not be having this caching issue that I'm having every single time I make a change. Now let's go to products. Let's actually click to view that product. And yep, there we go. We've got the page rendering out the way that it's supposed to. We don't have an image uploaded for that particular cohort, but it is showing us all of that information. And if we click that Buy Now button, it actually takes us to that checkout page that we'd already linked up directly to anyway. So most people, I don't think, are going to end up on this, but I definitely didn't want the page to error out. I didn't want any errors or any issues on the site. And so now we don't have that. We have this section working appropriately. Okay, so let's go into FluentCRM. Under FluentCRM, this is where we are going to manage all of our contacts, and all of our contacts will be anybody who has either signed up for the waitlist or has become a member by signing up and paying. And we'll be able to sort this list based off of what status they're in. And then we'll also have tags applied to that as well. So we have that cohort 1 tag. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add a tag for waitlist as well. And we'll click create for the waitlist. So now we have a cohort 1 and we have a waitlist tag. Since we have a waitlist tag, we also need to apply that to our waitlist form. So let's go to Fluent Forms, and under Forms, here's Waitlist. Let's click Settings. And then Configure Integrations under Waitlist. We'll click Add New Integration, FluentCRM Integration, and we'll title this Add to Waitlist. We'll put them under Members. We'll connect this to their email. We'll connect their first name and their last name as well. And then under tags, we're going to connect them to waitlist. And then we'll enable force subscribe just in case for some reason they already exist in our list. We want to make sure they are in that subscribed status. And then we'll hit save feed. Now, when somebody goes and puts in their name and their email address into the waitlist, it's going to tag them appropriately in the back end of our website that they are now in the waitlist. But at this point, they're not going to get any emails yet. So let's go back to Claude, and we're going to give it some instructions to help us write some emails. I want to start writing the automatic emails that are going to be sent to people when they either sign up for a cohort or they're added to the wait list. Let's first start with the confirmation email that they're going to receive after signing up for the wait list. This is an email that will be sent through a Fluent CRM automation. So I need the subject line for the email. I need the subject preview line or the email preview line. And then I need the actual email body. Now, I don't have dates yet, so leave a placeholder for the date of the next cohort. And then let's hit submit. And Claude is going to write out all of this information for us. While it's doing that, let's go into Fluent CRM, and under automations, we're going to create an automation. And under that new automation, we're going to create a very simple automation funnel. And this is when a tag is applied. So this is going to trigger when a tag is applied. We're going to hit continue. We're going to select the tag waitlist, and we're going to call this new waitlist member. And then we'll hit save settings. We'll hit plus, and we want to send a custom email. And then for our label, this will be waitlist confirmation. We'll go back to Claude and see what it's got. It says subject line, you're on the list. Great, that's a good one, or a good title for it. So our email subject, you're on the list. You'll hear from me first when the doors open to the next cohort. I like that. That's the email pre-header. And then in the body, we'll select that and we'll paste this here. Now you'll notice that it automatically populated first name because Claude knows that we're using Fluent CRM. It brought in this smart tag that's automatically going to populate their first name. But we click on this and it says fallback if empty. We can put something in there that would be the fallback if for some reason it couldn't determine the first name. So I'm just going to put there. So it would be hey there. So it would either say hey first name, like hey Jared, or it would say hey there as a fallback. And I kind of like to use a wave emoji as well. So I'm going to go ahead and search for the wave emoji, hit copy to copy it to my clipboard. And I'm going to delete that comma, hit space, and paste in that wave emoji just to make it look a little bit more friendly. Now let's look at what our email says. You're on the wait list for the next Build with Jared cohort. When doors open, you hear about first, blah, blah, blah. Great. Here's where I would put in the cohort date. Here's a call to action to follow along on Substack. This email essentially looks good and is good to go. So let's just go ahead and save this email. The email is now saved and this automation is ready to go. I'm going to hit publish to publish that automation. And now if somebody goes and fills out that waitlist form, they're automatically going to get this email. And of course, they'll be added into the system appropriately. This essentially is a very simple automation of just one step, which is sending that email. But one of the great things about using a tool like this is you could send a sequence of emails. And so if I have a new cohort that's going to be starting, I would want somebody to get a couple of different emails. I'd want a welcome to the cohort that's just like, here's what's happening next. And then over the next couple of days, I would want emails to go out. And then maybe I would want a separate automation that would send a series of emails leading up to the specific dates of that cohort. These are all things that can be done in FluentCRM, which is why it's such an awesome platform. And because Claude has a basic understanding of how FluentCRM works, I can literally just chat in here and say what I want and then ask how to set it up. And it's also going to give me the setup instructions on where I would need to go within FluentCRM to add these specific emails. And so this is stuff that I'm going to have to think through. What is the cohort member experience going to look like? There's probably some emails that I'm going to want to send throughout the process of the cohort as well. For example, maybe a day or two before the next live, I want to make sure everybody has a fresh email that has the live link. I want to make sure that everybody has whatever details each week, so that way they don't have to scroll through old emails and try and find old information. I want the process to be as user-friendly and easy as possible. And I can do all of that by setting up emails and customizing when they're going to go out. And then I can reuse these again for the next cohort in the future. So FluentCRM is great because it's all integrated from within the website. Yes, I could be doing this with another tool like MailChimp or something like that. But then I have connections to manage between two different places. And this is kind of the same reason why I built my operations dashboard, was so that everything worked and talked together and I wasn't connecting different tools and trying to figure out how to make everything work together. WordPress is great because it's a proven platform. As you've seen here, we've been able to use Claude to build out a pretty elaborate website in the matter of a couple of hours, including adding some amazing features like a shopping cart and a form builder, and then also a complete email marketing platform. Within the matter of a few hours here, we've built out a complete online course system, and we used Claude to develop the style, the look and the feel of it. We used Claude to develop the actual theme and all of the code, and then we used Claude to help generate all of the content and everything as well. So while there's more that would need to be done to fully launch this, you should have the understanding, if this is something that you wanted to build, how to spin up a new WordPress website, how to create a design style framework, how to take that into Claude Code and have Claude Code build out a complete WordPress theme that looks amazing, very professional. Yeah, it needs a photo still and some other little fine tuning, but essentially is done. It's very easily editable from the back end of the website without having to know code or how to use any fancy builders or anything like that. And then we also have a shopping cart implemented and all of these additional features that typically are a bit challenging to configure and set up. And all of this was pretty simple. All right, well, thanks for watching the video. I hope that you watched all of it. That would be fantastic for the YouTube algorithm. But nonetheless, I hope that you found it useful. Building websites has never been easier, and using Claude Code and some of the tools that are available to us certainly make the possibilities pretty much limitless. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'd also greatly appreciate if you would follow me on Substack. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to Substack and subscribe there. That is how you can support me producing videos like this and more like it. I want to just record every build that I do and put it out there because it's amazing what we can create, and I love sharing the process. So if you'd like to support me, use the Substack link down below, and you'll also get access to other resources of mine, as well as all of the articles that I write. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for being here, and I hope to see you over on Substack. Take care.